Hi, I'm Zoe, the owner and vet physio here at Fit Pet Physio, and this week's vlog is all about dogs and horses and their differences in shoulders and hind end anatomy. So this is one for all the anatomy nerds, but don't worry if you're not too into your anatomy because this is really short and really simple. So we're going to have a look at the shoulder and hind end anatomy of dogs and horses, focus on their differences, if there are any, and how that alters our fitness goals and the programs for our pets, if it does at all. So we're going to have a look at dog shoulder and hind end anatomy, horse shoulder and hind end anatomy, and then the differences in training. So for our dogs, they have quite superficial shoulder anatomy, comprising the trapezius, deltoids, triceps, and brachialis, with the rhomboid, super and infraspinatus, teres major and minor, and bicep sitting deeper. And in their hind ends, superficially, they have the superficial and middle gluteals and the bicep femoris, which is one part of the hamstring muscle. The other two parts of the hamstring muscle, the semimembranosus and semitendinosus, sit a little bit deeper, as do the quadriceps. So here you can see the superficial layer of the dog's anatomy in their shoulder, the triceps, the deltoids, triceps, deltoids, brachialis. In the hind end, the middle and superficial gluteals, which are very small in comparison to the horse, which you'll see in a minute, and the biceps femoris. Then if we take a deeper look, we can see the semimembranosus, semitendinosus, these two muscles here. We can still see the middle gluteal, and we can see the supra and infraspinatus, the rhomboid muscle, and the teres major and minor. So in our horses, the supraspinatus and infraspinatus do actually have some superficial portions, as do the biceps, which are not found in the dog, which, like we've just discussed, are very deep muscles. In the horse's hind end, unlike in the dogs, the semimembranosus and semitendinosus, those two parts of the hamstring muscles, can be seen superficially, and only the quads sit deeper. So here we've got the glutes, the middle and superficial, which you can see are a lot bigger than in the dog. You've also got your three parts of your hamstring, your semimembranosus, tendinosus, and your biceps femoris. In the shoulders, again, we've got our trapezius, but there's little portions of the supra and infraspinatus that you can see that you can't see in the dog. Got the deltoids, just like we do in the dog, and the triceps, but then we've also got a little bit of the biceps brachii, which we don't see in the dog. However, more deep, so we've taken that superficial layer off now. We can see the brachialis that we could see superficially in the dog. We can see the rest of the biceps. We can see our teres major and minor. We can see the whole of the supra and infraspinatus, which are a lot longer than those superficial portions that we can see. But unlike in the dog, there is a little superficial portion that we can see. We've also got our quadricep muscle that we couldn't see superficially. And you can see that they've just taken the hamstring muscle off here for you to have a look at what's underneath. So all of those hamstring muscles do sit much more superficially in the horse than in the dog. So how does that lead to any differences in training? So horses do tend to have much more prevalent and easily felt shoulder and hind end muscles, which isn't surprising if you compare, say, a racehorse to a racing greyhound. You can see the definition in the horse's muscle much more easily than you can see in the dog's. So what does that really mean for our training? Well, simply, it's just easier to assess our horse's muscle mass than it is our dog's, which means that we have to be a bit more mindful of our pet's weight, because if it's harder to see the muscles, we need to make sure that we are actually measuring changes in muscle mass and not fat coverage. So this is where body condition scoring can help us, and if you want to learn a little bit more about that, check out the link in the description. How does it change our pet's fitness program? Well, the primary change comes from different functions of the pet's muscles, and luckily for us there aren't too many differences, the main difference being the size and position of the gluteal muscles. So like we saw, it's much bigger in the horses than it is in the dogs. And when it comes to changes in programs, the major changes I like to look at are focusing more on hip and stifle extension in our dogs, but overall stride length in our horses. This is because due to the reciprocal mechanism, the horse's hock and stifle move together, meaning that the whole lower limb is either flexed or extended, where in the dogs it doesn't have to be, which can lead to some subtle changes in how we build the muscles of particularly the lower leg. Also, you'll find in horses that we have much more tendinous lower legs than we do in dogs. So that's a difference as well. But overall, the differences in shoulder and hind end anatomy don't lead to that many differences in training. The only thing that really changes is the focus on the gluteal muscles in our horses, which we do talk about quite a lot. especially in, say, our jumping horses, but we don't really touch on all that much in our dogs just because they're not as prevalent. So the biggest changes in training actually come from what our dogs and horses do as opposed to the differences in their anatomy. I hope you found that useful, and please check out the description for more links to our blogs.